Every time you sit down to eat, there's a lot more going on than you might think. On your plate, there's this whole invisible world just teeming with life. And yes, some of that life can be a real problem. Now look, most of these microbes, they're actually our friends. I mean, they're the little powerhouses that give us stuff we love. They turn milk into amazing cheese, grapes into wine. We literally couldn't have them without these guys. They're essential. But, and there's always a but, right? There's a flip side. A tiny fraction of them are what scientists call pathogens, and those are the ones that can make us sick.
So what is it? What's the invisible line between a perfectly safe, delicious meal and one that's going to cause a whole lot of trouble? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into. We're going to pull back the curtain and look at the science behind it all.
Okay, first things first. We gotta get our heads around the scale we're dealing with here. Because these things, they live in a world that is completely invisible to us.
This is such a cool way to see it. Up top, you've got things we can all see, right? A chicken egg. Easy. But as you go down and down, way past what even a regular microscope can see, that's where bacteria live. They are just unbelievably tiny, but wow, their impact can be huge.
And it's not just their size, it's how they're built. They're just different from us. On the left, you've got your basic bacterium, a prokaryotic cell. Think of it like a tiny, simple studio apartment. All its stuff, its DNA, is just kind of floating around inside. But on the right, that's a cell like ours, a eukaryotic cell. It's more like a mansion, It's got different rooms, everything is organized, and the DNA is tucked away safely in the master bedroom, the nucleus. And that simple studio apartment structure, that's actually part of their secret weapon. It helps them be incredibly tough and multiply super, super fast.
Okay, so they're small, they're simple, but how does one tiny little thing become a massive problem? Well, they've got a playbook, and rule number one is all about strength in numbers.
Their main move is something called binary fission, and honestly, it's so simple, it's brilliant. The cell just copies its DNA, scoots the copies to opposite ends, and then poof, it splits right down the middle. One becomes two, just like that. And this is where it gets a little terrifying. They can do that split every 10 to 20 minutes if the conditions are right. So their growth isn't just fast, it's exponential. Let this sink in. One single bacterium can turn into over 16 million in just 8 hours. That's a normal workday. And that right there is the difference between a bite of food being totally fine and it being a real danger. And what's the most important condition? It's temperature. Take a look at this chart. See that green curve labeled mesophiles? Those are the bacteria we worry about in food. And look at where that curve peaks. It just skyrockets in what we call the temperature danger zone, which is basically room temperature up to hot, but not quite cooking temperature. This is exactly why leaving your leftovers on the counter is such a bad idea. Okay, but what happens when things get tough for them? Well, some bacteria have this incredible superpower. We're talking about guys like Clostridium and Bacillus. They can form these ultra-tough little survival pods called spores. It's like they build their own personal bunker to hide from heat, chemicals, you name it. Then they just wait, and when conditions get good again, they pop back out and get right back to business. So it's not just about numbers. Bacteria also have weapons. They make these poisons called toxins, and there are two main types. You've got exotoxins. Think of these as poison darts that the living bacteria actively fire out into the food. Then you have endotoxins. These are different. The poison is literally part of the bacteria's body, and it only gets released when the bacterium dies and falls apart. And this is so, so important to understand. It means that even if you cook your food and kill all the bacteria, the toxins they left behind, they can still be there, and they can still make you sick. All right, so we've seen their playbook. Now, let's meet the culprits. Think of this as a sort of most wanted list for the microscopic world. First on our list, Clostridium botulinum. This is the one that causes botulism. It absolutely loves places with no oxygen, which is why you always hear about it in connection with badly canned food. Its weapon of choice? A neurotoxin, so powerful it's one of the deadliest substances known to man. It causes paralysis. This is serious stuff. Next up, Bacillus cereus. And hey, remember those little survival bunkers, the spores? Well, this guy is a master at using them. The spores are all over the place, often on dry rice. They're so tough, they can actually survive being boiled. Then, when that cooked rice is left to cool down slowly on the counter, the spores wake up, the bacteria multiply, and they start pumping out toxins. And that is exactly why leftover fried rice is the classic example for this kind of food poisoning. If that rice isn't cooled down fast and stored properly, you're just creating the perfect environment for this bug.
It really all boils down to temperature and time.
Okay, now for a name you've definitely heard before: Salmonella. This one's a major player, one of the top causes of food poisoning all over the world. Where does it hang out? Think raw chicken, eggs, uncooked meat. It gives you all those classic awful symptoms that we unfortunately all know too well. And then there's E. coli. Now, it's important to know that most E. coli are totally harmless. We have them in our own bodies, but there's this one specific strain, O157H7, and it's a really nasty one. It comes from the intestines of cattle, which means its main way of getting to us is through undercooked ground beef. And this isn't just a bad case of stomach flu. It can cause kidney failure, and it's especially dangerous for kids. I mean, this picture really tells the story, doesn't it? And here's why a hamburger is riskier than a steak. With a steak, any bacteria are just on the surface. But when you grind meat, you take whatever was on the outside and mix it all the way through the inside. That's why you have to cook a burger all the way through to kill anything that might be hiding in the middle. Listeria. Now, this one is really sneaky. Why? Because it has a very unusual superpower. It can grow in the cold. Yeah, it can multiply in your refrigerator. This makes it a problem for foods we normally think of as safe in the fridge, things like deli meats or soft cheeses, and it is extremely, extremely dangerous for pregnant women. All right, seafood fans, this one's for you. Meet Vibrio. This bacteria lives in the ocean, in salt water. So you can probably guess how it gets to us. Raw or undercooked seafood. Yep, we're talking about raw oysters. See, oysters are filter feeders, which means they're constantly sucking in water to eat. And in doing so, they can concentrate any Vibrio from that water right into their own bodies, which makes them a pretty high-risk snack if you're not careful. Okay, I know that was a pretty scary list of characters. But here's the good news, and it's the most important thing I'm going to say. You are absolutely not powerless against them. In fact, just by understanding how they work, you've already taken the biggest step toward keeping your kitchen safe. It really just boils down to 4 simple, powerful habits. Number 1, inspect. That dented can? It could be a tiny breach in the seal, creating that perfect no oxygen zone for botulism. Toss it. Number 2, wash. Simple, right? But it gets rid of any little microbial hitchhikers on your fruits and veggies. 3, separate. This is all about avoiding cross-contamination. You don't want the germs from your raw chicken hopping over to your fresh salad. And finally, number 4, the big one, temperature control. Cook things to the right temperature to kill the bad guys, and cool your leftovers down fast to stop new ones from growing. See, it's all about not giving them a chance to set up shop. So, there you have it. We've taken a peek into this invisible world, we've met the main culprits, and we've learned their tricks. The science isn't that complicated, right? You now know what it takes to make your food safer. So, I'll leave you with a question. Now that you know all this, what's one simple thing you're going to change in your own kitchen? Maybe even tonight?